Welcome to Cal's Corner Ministries. I'm Cal. This is real talk about real life through the lens of faith. No sugarcoating, no pretending, just honest conversations. God's truth and how it actually plays out day to day. If you're trying to walk this out in your life, you're in the right place. Let's get into it. Hello again, everyone, and welcome back into Cal's Corner. And we have a very unique guy here today who's going to sit with us, Troy Thompson. And welcome to the show.
Thanks for having me, Cal.
Yeah, so I'll tell you what, first things first, you get a shirt.
All right.
Look at that.
Nice.
You're going to get something out of this.
Cool. We'll just leave that right there.
Yeah, there we go.
Thank you very much.
Yeah, you bet. Thanks for being here today. I kind of gave you a little bit of a format, so let's kind of get started. Tell me the early years of Troy.
Let's see. Well, to start with, I'm 56 years old. I grew up in the east side of Des Moines, and I grew up with two very loving, encouraging, supporting parents. Dual income family, worked very hard, but I had a very good childhood growing up. Great parents.
Were your parents still alive or not?
Yeah, they're
Really? Wow.
83 and 82, both still very active and doing pretty well. So I wake up every day wondering, God, like how I'm so blessed to have them around.
Absolutely.
Because a lot of my friends have lost their parents, and so I'm very fortunate, and they're very involved in my life and my kids' lives and so forth. So, yeah, feel very blessed.
I've lived longer without my dad than I did with my dad.
Oh, wow.
Yeah, so yeah, that is a blessing. So, tell me about the early years. What were those like for you?
Early years. Let's see. You're talking about elementary, junior.
Yeah, growing up as a young boy.
Yeah, growing up, I was very involved in athletics. Played baseball, football, wrestled for a year, wrestled for, 1 or 2 years, nothing big, but I excelled in football and baseball and was always sports minded. My dad played a lot of influence in my life in carpentry. I watched my dad and his dad build garages and additions, and I was always right along there with him. Throughout that, I picked up a great hobby of fine woodworking. And so I love to create and build stuff out of wood and things like that. So that's one childhood thing that I can go back that my dad really passed on to me.
Tell me about middle school.
Middle school was good. It's where things, I think, as most kids do in junior high, you start to get off in life and you start to figure out a little bit of independence and who you are and where you're at in the school. And I had a good junior high. Got in a lot of little trouble, being mischief. Just little things here and there, throwing rocks at cars and things like that, going home from school. But overall, I had a good junior high. One thing that really stands out to me leaving junior high, going into the 9th grade, that 8th grade summers where one thing that looking back that happened, I was exposed to alcohol as the first time I ever had alcohol, and definitely was in that crowd of wanting to fit in. And thought these type of things were cool, and that was the thing to do, and I kind of quickly accepted that fairly quick.
Then did that follow you through high school then?
Yeah, going into going into high school, hung out with all the football players, basketball, things like that. It was kind of a party. I was in that party crowd. I really didn't care much about school, just trying to get through and do the littlest as possible. And I mentioned woodworking. I signed up for every shop class available because I was truly intrigued with building things and learning about construction and things of that nature. But yeah, it just excelled throughout high school, the weekend parties, the kegs and things like of that nature. However, let me back up. There was one instrumental time when I was about 12 years old. I grew up with a family that we always went to church. And I was at a church camp. I think I was like 12. And that's when I accepted Christ in my life. And I'll never forget my dad picking me up. And I just remembered being so happy, that I had asked Christ in my life to become the leader and savior of my life. Looking back, I'm not exactly sure what all that meant at that time, but I knew there was a God. I believed in God, and I believed that, Jesus Christ came down to save us. But I remember being so happy telling my dad. It's one clear memory that I have at 12. That seed was planted. I think it took many years for it to actually grow.
So what about after high school? Tell us about that.
High school, I went to a trade school. My grandpa owned an air conditioning heating business, and it always kind of was so said that Troy was going to take that business over. And so I went to air conditioning and heating school, and I really didn't like it. And I wanted to go to Iowa State. And so I went up to Iowa State. And so that was kind of a little bit out of high school into Iowa State, that step. And looking back, it was really just the first step to kind of get away, get out of the house. And I joined a frat, and it was a great time. It was a typical frat boy lifestyle, and that just accelerated the binge drinking. And I quickly accepted and thought that that was great. You know, looking back, I know I had so many insecurities in life, and it was really just covered up in binge drinking and being a crazy guy and the last one in bed and things of that nature. College met some of my best friends even as of today, but it was really just a party.
How long did you last there?
Let's see, I think a couple years. I was fortunate enough to have parents that actually paid for my school, but I didn't appreciate it. I took it for granted, and I called them up one day. I said, you know, I don't want to go to school anymore. And they're like, oh, you're so close to graduating and so forth. And I'm like, you don't understand. I just don't want to be here. I'm having fun. I'm wasting your money. And they're like, well, what are you going to do? I want to go out and work at a ski resort. You know, so going to college to a ski resort was not really pleasing for them to hear.
Then you're moving because there's no ski resorts probably in Iowa.
Yeah. So I
You're
tried getting a job over the phone, and to get hired at a ski resort. They're like, you know, no one's going to hire you over the phone. You just got to come out. More than likely, you'll get a job. You know, always looking for help on the mountain. And I said, Mom, Dad, I don't want any help. I had a credit card that maybe had like $300 limit on it. I got on a bus, and I had 2 things of luggage, and I ventured out to Colorado and got off the bus stop and took a cab into Keystone, Colorado. I got into the HR with my bags that day, walked in and like, I need a job. I'm here. I have nowhere else to go, so hopefully you'll hire me. And that was an experience. But I ended up getting a job that day, and I had housing lined up the next night, so I had to get a hotel, which had a little bit of credit limit on my credit card, so I used that. And in the cab, and then by the next day I had housing, I had a job, and I had food that came along with the housing, so it was perfect. Wow. Yeah, and I worked on top of the mountain, just filling like for refrigerators and stuff like that when people came through to get sandwiches and yogurt and stuff like that. And then I saw these kids coming through with these ski instructors, and I just thought that was so cool. You know, teaching kids how to ski. And I grew up skiing. My dad's dad lived in Colorado, and so I'd spent a lot of time skiing. So I was pretty decent for living in Iowa. But they had a clause in the employment deal where you couldn't move around the mountain. You had to be at least in one area of the mountain. So if you're in like concessions, you had to stay there for at least 6 months before you applied to, you know, jump around. And so I went and talked to my boss, and she said, yeah, go try out. There's a tryout clinic coming out. So I tried out. I got the job, and so she signed off on me. So then I was making like $12 an hour, had free housing and free food.
Oh my.
And I thought it was the best part of my life.
You got the world by the tail.
Yeah, I truly was. I was excited. I was happy. I was having fun, but partying was very common. I was living in like a dorm, which is like an extension of the frat. You know, just kept partying along there, and then I blew my knee out, and so that's what kind of canceled out that whole part of my life. I moved back home to have surgery.
ACLs.
Yeah, ACL and my meniscus. Tore those, and so that ended the Colorado happiness tour.
Gotcha. So I tore my ACL. I tore the replacement.
Oh, wow.
And I just had knee replacement surgery mid-April.
Okay.
So
you're doing good?
That was my 6th surgery on just this day. So yeah, I mean, it's way better now than what it was.
Yeah.
Way better now than what it was. Wow. So a little bit about me. And like I always say, less about me, more about you. So how long was your rehab? Probably 9 months?
You know, back then I think it was a little bit longer. They've accelerated them quite a bit. From what I hear, other people having those type of surgeries. If I remember right, it might have been a 3 to 6 months, kind of full recovery type of thing.
Say what, we're going to take a quick time out. Nice time to take a time out before we keep going. So you're listening to Cal's Corner here, brought to you by Sherpa Leadership. So we'll be back in just a moment. Welcome to Great Men's Ministries, where men come together to hear stories of faith, to be encouraged, and to have fellowship. Join us every second Saturday of the month at 7 a.m. at the Grant Depot. All men are welcome.
Welcome back here at Cal's Corner. You get injured, come back to Iowa, get the surgery, do the rehab.
Yeah, I was in the middle of the rehab, and a friend of mine called me. He said, "Hey, I'm moving out to Hermosa Beach, California. You're the perfect guy to help me move out." And he goes, come right along with me. Where he was taking a U-Haul and pulling his car, and help me move out there, stay with me for a couple weeks. We'll figure out where I'm going to stay, move in and stuff, and then I'll fly you back. And so that invite sounded pretty intriguing to me, free spirit. So I was like, yeah, count me in. So we went out there and we were staying, and we were taking a stop on the drive in Arizona. And I think, I'm just going to stay out here and just see what happens. So once again, I make a call to my parents, and I'm like, hey, I'm moving out to California. I'm just going to stay out here, and, could you start packing up my stuff and ship it out to me? That's what took me out to another aspect or journey of my life, into Hermosa Beach. So we rolled into Hermosa Beach and was living right on the beach, and it's a beautiful area.
What part of California is that in?
Hermosa Beach is right in LA, maybe 15, 20 minutes from the airport, real close to, if you've heard of Redondo Beach or Manhattan Beach, I don't know if you've heard of those. It's sandwiched right in between. It's about a 1 or 2 mile square community.
Where did that time take you?
Took me to a lot of different places. It's hard not to reflect back of where it actually took me into drug addiction and alcohol. I was quickly, so going from college, binge drinking, party life, and then out to California, living on the beach, to where cocaine was just everywhere. I was quickly introduced to it, and I quickly accepted it. And that began really about a 10-year drug addiction with cocaine, meth, alcohol. I mean, you name the drug, it's been in my body. It was never done in a way where you think of maybe some people with drug addiction, where they're maybe down in a basement hanging about by themselves. And it was quite the opposite. We were very out, very socially, living in the beach community, but just doing a lot of drugs, living selfishly, and just not living a very stable life, if you will.
Oh, you did that for 10 years.
10 years, yeah. And at the height of the issue came, I was getting on a plane flying up to Sacramento, and I'd been up for probably 4.5 days straight, just doing drugs and alcohol and very little food. I'll never forget walking into the airport, walking in closer and closer to the plane where you board, and my heart just started beating. I'm like, I was worried, like, I had no drugs, I was coming down, no alcohol in me at that time, and they're going to want to put me in that plane, and they're going to tell me to strap in. I'm like, I don't know how I can deal with this, so I started really worrying, like, do I want to get on this plane? And I got on the plane, I strapped in, and I couldn't sit still. I was getting up and down, going back and forth to the bathroom. I was starting to worry. I was getting a lot of anxiety, like I couldn't deal being in my own skin. It was a horrible feeling. And so I just started drinking. Back then they'd let you get drunk on a plane. And so I just started drinking those little shots just to hopefully try to calm me down. Flight wasn't that long, but I remember the flight attendant came up to me and she goes, "Are you all right?" And I'm like, yeah, and I really wasn't. I was scared out of my mind. And I got out of the plane, and the person picked me up. I'm like, "You got to take me to the hospital." And next thing you know it, I'm about ready to go into cardiac arrest. And I've got tubes and wires hooked up to me and in intensive care. And I ended up spending about 5 days and about died. And I'll never forget, like, hanging on to this nurse and just like, just, please don't let me die. Please don't let me go. And I was so worried and so concerned. Like, my parents, I think they knew kind of what was going on with me, but I hid it from them so well. I was out there and I didn't want them to worry about me. I think they already worried enough about me, and I didn't want to layer that on with alcohol and drugs. I really protected them from it. I also had really good relatives that I loved, and they're like my parents as well, that was right in that same city. And I chose not to call anyone and just deal with it on my own. But man, I started praying. I'm like, God, just get me out of here. And it was simple. Like, God, just help me. And I didn't want, I just thought I was going to die. It was going to be the end of my life. And I'm thinking about my parents. I'm like, man, they don't deserve this. Can visualize it all right now. And it was just a really crummy feeling of shame and regret of where I was at. Like, this is what my life is about right now. This is how I'm going to go. And I also remember thinking, I have so much life to live. I was happy, but I was dysfunctional, but I was happy, or at least I thought I was. They came in and shot something in my heart that I think it's like a massive dose of adrenaline. And I'll never forget, it just felt like Jesus came in the room and just laid this warm blanket over me. And it was just like peace. Like someone just laid peace over me. And I just felt like I'm going to make it. I mean, it's just like all of that stuff was just like gone. I can't even describe that peaceful feeling that I had. And I knew it was Jesus there helping me. The sad thing about it is I got out of there, but 2 weeks after that, I was right back at doing the same stuff. I was very functional as far as work and creating an income for myself, but I got to the point where I was starting to get tired of my own self. I was tired of being tired. I was just getting wore down mentally, physically. I was just getting shot. And there was never a time where I thought about searching for help, like an AA or NA or church. Church wasn't in my life at all. And the friends that I had, I love them to death still. But none of us took care of each other in that way. Like, hey, maybe you should slow down. It was like, hey, when are you going to get out? Let's go. That's how my life was.
What was your job?
I was running a marketing company that we did new customer promotions for oil companies. And basically just drill that down really deep. It was door-to-door sales. And I had answered a job, sports-minded individual. And anyways, long story short, I'd built my way up in the company where we had several offices and I was overseeing them. I learned a lot from it because door-to-door sales, you will learn everything about life if you can master door-to-door sales. And then I had moved up to Sacramento for a little while to expand an area that they weren't in before. And moved up there on my own and kind of duplicated a business model up there.
So you were able to function during the day normally, for lack of better words, and then go out and party at night.
Yeah,
Be able to
or
get
during
back
the
up.
day as well. It was, my triggers were if I'd had a beer, I'd want a cigarette, and then I'd want cocaine. That was like that was the three things that would happen. If I didn't have a beer, I wouldn't want a cigarette or cocaine. But once I'd have a beer, which is often, then the other things followed fairly quick. But that was the lifestyle. I knew I had to do something. And the only thing that I knew how to get out of this was to move back home. So I pretty much just picked up and moved back home. And that's how I got from California back to there. I missed the beach tremendously. I love the sun, ocean. I wish I wouldn't have messed that up. I'm here for a reason. And so I moved back home, but it kind of progressed some things here. I'd moved back home, and fairly soon when I moved back home, I had met my wife, and we ended up getting married. We had a child, and you can take someone out of their environment, but you can't take away the addictions and the craving that I had formed over, kind of a lifespan at the end of junior high to, through college to now layering the drugs on top of it. You can't take that away. And I thought by moving back home, it'd go away. But the lifestyle back here, we were still drinking a lot, typical house parties, restaurants, things of that nature. So the foundation of the relationship I had with my wife was really not, I wouldn't say any type of wholesome values, but it was just very based on going out drinking and partying and having fun with friends and family and stuff like that.
So you had really like a 20-year journey from, let's say, 14 to 34, mid-30s?
Yeah, until about 31. And then we had our first child, and I had started sneaking around and identified some people I could tell that were doing cocaine. So I started lying to my wife, started lying to myself. And again, I'm like, who am I? What am I doing? But I kept that all in. I didn't tell anybody that I was struggling with these triggers. And looking back, I wish I would have talked to a lot more people about it, but I didn't. And my daughter she was 9 months at that time. And there was a pastor that I've had in my life throughout pretty much my whole life, and knew my family real well. He knew me real well. He had counseled my wife and I before. I called him up. I'm like, hey, I want to go out to lunch with you and catch up. And this is what really changed my life. And this is probably why I'm not here versus probably in the ground or living some really dysfunctional life. I asked him, we were catching up, telling him everything that was going on in my life. And I asked him, I said, hey, Tom, my daughter's going to be a year in 3 months, and just looking for wisdom from him, because I respected him in every way. I said, look, what does that mean to me? And he said, well, let me ask you something. And this is what changed my life. He said, your daughter's going to grow up to marry someone like you. And Troy, what do you want that to look like for her? And that was just like a big punch in the face to me. And it just really unsettled me to the core. I obsessed on that question for about 2 weeks. I made the decision, like, this has got to go. The alcohol, everything's got to go. And so I pushed the chips in, and I made a decision that I'm done. I want to be a good father. I want to be a good husband. I want to be a good child of God. We had started going to church a little bit. That's kind of what got me to a point where I just said, I'm ready to make some changes in my life. And I went through a program called, I think it was a 3-year program called Christ Life Solutions. It's a faith-based recovery for all different type of hangups and addictions, where we truly went through our whole life, trying to figure out where we have formed some of the visions and views of life, and how we handled things and stress and pressures, and how we handled good things in our life. And what I really discovered from that is how insecure I was when I was really just covering everything up, filling everything up with drugs and alcohol. And that 2-3 year period, that started me on a journey of now 21 years, almost 20, getting on 22 years of sobriety. So yeah, it's been fun.
Based off of one question your pastor asked.
Yeah. Yep.
Wow. So we're going to take a quick break. You're listening to Cal's Corner Ministries here. We'll be back in just a moment. Welcome to White Lake Men's Ministries, where men come together to hear stories of faith, to be encouraged, and to have fellowship. Join us every first Saturday of the month at 7 a.m. at Hanson Hill Waterfront Grill in downtown Whitehall. All men are welcome. Welcome back here again to Cal's Corner Ministries right here in Des Moines with Bill and Ariel and Sherpa Leadership Group. And we have Troy Thompson with us. Welcome back. When we left out here in the second segment, you were talking about your pastor. Yeah, or a pastor friend.
Yeah, Pastor Tom.
Yeah, and then, he asked you that one question that kind of refocused on your life.
Yeah.
Was he still in your life?
Yeah, absolutely. I don't attend the church that he churches, that he's a pastor at, but I saw him about a month ago. I'm glad you reminded me that I need to go out to lunch with him. Still in my life.
I'm sure he's very proud of you also.
Yeah, he's helped so many people, and just a tremendous guy. Yeah, for sure.
Yeah. Tell me about your kids.
Okay, so I have 3 kids. I have 2 daughters, 22, just graduated from Iowa last year, and I have a 20-year-old daughter. She's at Iowa as well. And then I also have a 14-year-old boy here at Waukee.
So one of them, you just did a adventure hike, was it?
No, it was a competition called High Rocks. So this is a really cool thing about being a father. You never know what's going to happen. You always want your kids to go off on their own and succeed and be happy. But you always wonder if they're going to want to hang out with you. And I'm very thankful that my kids want to hang out with me, but I've always been into fitness related things and endurance sports. You never know if you're making a difference in your kid's life. I've never pushed them into anything, but my younger daughter, there's this competition called High Rocks, and it's similar to CrossFit, but it's a little bit more running involved. She said, hey Dad, would you want to do this? And I'm like, yeah, let me think about it. I'm like, heck, I was thinking just BSing, I'm like, no, count me in, let's go. So it was a really cool experience that I got to spend time with her, and she looked to me for, how do we train for this? And I had been trained for a little bit of it a few years back. And so she trusted me, trained together. And then we went to, it was in Houston, and we did this competition. We did them separately. You could have done it as a team, but we did them separately. And it was just such a cool experience to bond, engage with your daughter. It brings up, it stirs up a lot of emotions in me. Just knowing where I came from, to have someone want to do that type of stuff that's just pure and nothing, there's nothing wrong with it, nothing bad about it, And then also watching her cross the finish line and seeing her be so proud of herself, of saying, I don't know how I'm going to do this, but I'm like, don't worry about that. Every day we're going to wake up, we're going to do something, and we're going to eventually cross the line. And seeing that was so rewarding for me to see her cross that, and now she's like a different child now. We're training, I'm training her to do her first half marathon. And so that's really cool. And so my boy, we play golf and fish, and my other daughter, we hang out. We do a lot of coffees and going out to dinner. So I've got different relationships with all three of the kids. Try to be very active and strategic in their life.
How's your golf?
It's just average.
Is it?
It's funny, when I used to drink, I was better, and then I quit drinking, and I'm like, I'm not good anymore. So I kind of gave it up. And my boy's now, he's on the golf team, and so he loves to golf. So I'm like, I like to golf too. I just like to really golf with people I really like. I can't spend 4 or 5 hours with somebody that I'm just not going to really like gel with. But obviously I gel with my boy. Been playing a lot of golf lately with him, but it's just average.
I want to go back to that event. What was it, High Rock? Is it?
High Rocks.
High Rocks.
Yeah.
What age division were you in?
I was in the 55 to 59. That sounds so old, but yeah.
Yeah.
And I think I was probably one of the oldest guys there for sure.
How did you do?
I got 9th in my age group out of, I think there was a little over 500. So yeah, I was shooting to be in the top 3, but there's 8 different disciplines that you have to do. And in between each one, you have to run a little over half mile in between each one. So there's a lot of running involved, and they're held in these big convention centers. And so you had to do 2 laps. 2 of the times that I had to run, I ran 3 laps instead of 2. So my mind was going so much that I actually ran too much. So I probably would have got a little closer to what I originally wanted to do. It was fun though.
So this was inside.
It was inside, yeah.
I was thinking this was outside.
Yeah, no, this is one of the first type of events I've done that was inside versus running or ultra marathoning or Ironman or things like that.
How many Ironman have you done?
A few, maybe 3 or 4.
How about tries?
I consider the triathlon and Ironman kind of the same thing. Ironman is a triathlon. It's Ironman just a brand, so kind of the same thing. I've gotten into ultra running, ultra swimming, just anything that's hard.
Explain what ultra running and swimming is for those that don't.
Ultra running is anything considered over a full marathon. So anything over 26 miles, then if you move up to a 30-mile run or 50, it's considered an ultra run. And so I've done everything from full marathons to over 100+ mile runs.
Nonstop?
Nonstop, yeah. I mean, I stop and walk and sit down and...
Yeah, but not over 2 days.
Huh?
Not over like, I'm running 50 today, I'm running 50
it's
tomorrow.
like 24, 26 hours, somewhere in there. Yeah, just straight through. And, but I'll tell you though, fitness is also, in these type of events, has really taught me a lot. Not only about myself, but also structure, and coming from a non-structure, free-spirited DNA, if you will, that has helped me tremendously, and also helped me with becoming secure in who I am, because there's so many things I've signed up for that I had no clue how. I've never done it, and it's very hard. But you become obsessed with it, and you train for it every day. Then once you eventually accomplish it, you're like, I did it. And ultra swimming, my longest swim was a 10-mile swim, just straight through. But those things are so hard, and you want to fall apart in the middle of it, and you want to quit, and you just keep going. And that has taught me so much about consistency and resilience and determination, that I've used that blueprint in other areas of my life. Yeah, so it's been a really fun thing for me, and I love doing it. I've seen so many men come alive by getting a little bit more active and accomplishing something that, whatever their hard could be, doesn't have to be a 100-mile run. Maybe it's a 5K or a half marathon, or maybe it's at a High Rocks or a mud run or something. They're like, hey, I've never done this, but I'm going to start getting in shape. And I've just seen so many people come alive by doing that.
Talk to me about Rockstar Super Dad.
Yeah, so one thing I've learned throughout my almost 22 years of sobriety, I've definitely ventured out and listened to other stories of people struggling, men and women, mainly men. I've seen a lot of common patterns when people are in addictions and struggles, that they tend to become very selfishly, obviously. A common thing I've seen is like men wanting a good connection with their children, but it's not there. It's fractured. Maybe they don't have anything in common with them. And what that generally tells me is they haven't spent a lot of time with them in those 1 to 12 years. Because if you don't lock that in right there, it's hard to do life with them. You better hope and pray that you can get that back. From what I've seen, it's something that's got to be earned, where it can be developed in the beginning. And so I've seen a lot of men, and that's really crushed me to hear these stories, as well as looking back as my life as being a father. Although my kids have never seen me drink in that lifestyle, there's things that I've still became addicted to, like work. For a while, I was addicted to work, and that was my focus. And a lot of people could see that. I couldn't see it at that time. It's one thing that I really identified myself of, I gotta change that. And I've surrounded myself by so many good men that are great leaders and fathers and people that are stronger in their faith than me. And surrounding myself with people like that has really leveled up my game and brought it to another level where I feel like God has called me to help other men, not only with sobriety, but get involved in your kids' lives. And I get it. I hear it a lot. You seem like you're always doing stuff with your kids. And I try to date my daughters as much as possible, even though they're out of the house. And I really try to put a strategic effort to that. When I hear people give me that feedback, and it's almost sometimes it's like a compliment, I feel like, well, why aren't you doing it? Why can't you do it? And I always ask them that. So I want to change that. Rockstar Super Dads is going to be a convention held spring, maybe late spring next year. And it's designed to bring men in together, fathers in together, and help them inspire and encourage them to start being more strategic and intentional with becoming a better father than they are today. So that's really the simple message. Become better than you are today. It's not going to happen overnight. Some are going to be shorter than others, but that journey of the kids didn't ask us to come into our lives, or they didn't ask us to come into the world. So I feel like it's our responsible, if you're going to have a responsibility of have kids, that you teach and guide them. And I think men have become so soft and weak and passive in today's world that they're letting their kids just be raised by the churches and school systems and sporting events. And while overall I'm not saying that's a bad thing, but ultimately, I think it's a father's role to make sure they're leading these areas. I still fail myself, and I'm always getting better. Doing things like this helps.
You're on a podcast right here, Cal's Corner.
Yes.
But you're starting your own podcast.
Yeah, I'm starting to record people and learning and navigating the fields of podcasting, from equipment and where and when and questions and what we're doing here, what type of people I want on, and so forth. So yeah, it's been a new thing.
Favorite book of the Bible?
I'm going to go with the whole Bible.
That's the first time I've heard that.
Yeah, I'm just going to go with that. Full transparency. I love listening to people talk about the Bible. It's very hard for me to sit down and read, and that's something I've been working on. So I get up every morning a little bit and read a little of the Bible. Not every day, but I'm trying to discipline myself to do that. But it's hard for me to do that. But I love listening to podcasts. I love listening to the Bible being read while I'm out and about on, runs and whatever. But that's an area where I really need to grow. So I'm going to go with the whole Bible.
There we go. That works. So we talked about the Rockstar Super Dad and then your podcasts, Sober Addiction. And I talked about those. And I could say what's next. Yeah. And those two things are what's next. Is there anything else?
Yeah. The thing that I focus on right now is every morning when I wake up is like, who did God intend me to be? And who does Troy want to be? And that's kind of my question. I wake up every day, and I think that's where things clash and become real. And living for myself has always failed. My way to thinking, and as much as things I can be confident about, it always fails.
Okay.
So I'm always constantly learning. And you ask what's ahead of me. I'm really trying to hone that in, living for God and living for Jesus and growing in that way in everything I do, over than seeing what Troy wants to live for.
Is there anything that I didn't ask that you wish I would have asked? You want to leave us with any thoughts?
The thoughts I have is just, I think it's, in this time of our society and what's going on with our world, I think it's become more and more apparent to me how we all need Jesus in our life. And the differences, and when people say they have a faith, or they're a Christian, but I think that's just a title, but I don't think it really means anything. So my thoughts are really learning about what that means to people, and just going to church is not enough. We need to be learning about why we're here and who we are to live for and not ourselves.
Yeah.
Maybe I'm repeating myself a little
No,
bit,
no,
but
that's just,
it's
but that's good.
yeah,
You can
it's
repeat that 3 times
yeah,
because it's all true.
it's becoming more apparent, and just probably more so this last year and a half. It's really like, I wish I would have had this, 20 years ago, but I don't. And I don't regret that, because I can always look back and say, man, I wish I would have done that, or I wish I wouldn't have said that. And da, 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 da. But also I look on this hand and I'm like, I'm so thankful that God gave me a choice and allowed me to go down these roads that really brought me to this hand over here of repentance and moving away from lifestyles and conversations of things that just are not pleasing to God.
And now you have this testimony, that's awesome testimony, where you can come in and share that, and you can help others with it and help others through addictions.
You bet.
You're saying, if I can do it, you can do it.
That's for sure.
Yeah.
That's
Awesome.
for sure.
Well, Troy, thank you.
Hey, you're
It's
welcome.
been a lot of fun. We're going to wrap up this session of Cal's Corner Ministries. And once again, I want to thank Sherpa Leadership Group with Phil and Ariel. And once again, Troy, thank you very much, bud. We'll see you soon.